The world is saved. The living room's dark save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
George,
I'm in your home.
you are in my home.
Ta-da!
Who let you in here?
Oh God! We got your neighborhood is very permissible. I'm surprised that they really let me in at all. But
Well,
here we
I'm
are.
surprised they let me in. I own a house here.
But it's nice. I can reach out and touch you or slap you. I mean, I'm not going to. I'm going to.
Not like one of the AT&T.
Reach
Is it
out and
AT&T? Will not slap someone.
I mean, I think I'd remember that. No,
That would have
you're
been a
right.
way cooler brand.
Yeah.
So, all right, we have the good fortune. We have the circumstances arose that we are in each other's company.
Correct.
So we decided this time to play a game that would be best served by the two-player experience, the synergy,
Yes.
the collaboration.
Oh yes.
So what did we play?
We played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Turtles in Time.
Which is the fourth game, which follows the theming of the third movie.
Yes, although I don't know which came first, the turtle or the egg. I'm pretty sure that the movie probably spawns the game because that seems more likely.
I mean, at that time in history, it was like they had comics, they had toys, they had cartoons, they had games. They were just throwing. It was the toy producer du jour, like G.I. Joe before it.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, like Ninja Turtles were everywhere. You know, I mean, like if you went up to somebody that was your age and said, "Hey, which Ninja Turtle are you?" and they said, "What?" You're like, obviously a communist, just straight up.
Oh, you don't speak English? I didn't realize. No, and okay, but which Ninja Turtle were you?
I was a mixture of, so I was
Bad
Donatello.
hedging.
No, it's Donatello, like off the top, Donatello. Sometimes I would be like, if somebody else was like super wanting to be Donatello, I would be Raphael. Or sorry, not Raphael. Raphael's hot garbage, and anybody who identifies with him is also hot garbage. But no. So I would sometimes be Leonardo, but Donnie for the win. So
Nerd, big nerd.
yeah, big old nerd. Which one were you?
Not Raphael. So I left to my own devices, right? Like if I get first pick, with the lottery, I like Raphael primarily because red. And I thought size were kind of neat, but like it didn't occur to me at the time, like his personality is not one I should try to emulate. I was like red and neat, right? Because in the cartoon, he was in the good cartoon, in the original cartoon, because there's been like 2 or 3 since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and the one that came out when we were children and therefore was the best.
Right, exactly, because that's how things work.
Absolutely.
So in the good cartoon, he was far less extreme compared to later iterations and also the comic.
Right.
Right, because in the original comic, their personalities were a little bit more polarized, and then they brought all the levels down for the cartoon, except Michelangelo, who is like over the top comic relief.
You're right.
Yeah, which I totally identified with. So like if Raphael was for some reason unavailable, I would absolutely go to Michelangelo. Like skateboarding, pizza eating, cowabunga, and like, what's not to like?
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, they're all, the only reason why I bash on Raph is because he is generally like almost the antagonist in the group,
Well, in one of the new movies, he's literally the cause of like half of the story.
He's the Vegeta. Like, he totally is, where everybody's like, yeah, no, it's cool. He's a good guy, but he kind of causes a lot of problems. Like, I could totally imagine Raphael being like, oh, this is a new feeling. Pride in someone else, Like, pretty much you take any of DBZ abridged Vegeta's lines, and those could very easily be Raphael lines.
True story.
Yeah, but
so I liked them's and Leonardo again, like, wasn't really thinking about character that you might emulate, but he did have the best weapon because I feel like nunchucks are like a kid weapon, right? Because you're like, oh, that's cool, but anyone who's the tiniest bit practical would go for a staff like Donatello or they're not katanas. I guess they're ninja dos because they're straight.
Yeah,
and they're ninjas.
Yeah, but still,
he calls them katanas. He's wrong.
Yeah, but to be fair, he's the one with the katanas. So you're gonna argue with him? Like, there's like, look at those katanas. Actually, those are and then
stab.
those are insert lungs filling with blood noise.
How's that career as a translator working out for you? Like, deaf people will know exactly what's happening now.
It's going poorly.
So I have to tell the side story. So my favorite subtitle thing that I've ever actually seen in person, because everybody's seen funny ones on the internet. This one I actually came across myself firsthand in The Nightmare Before Christmas when Sally is trying to escape and she jumps out of the window. You don't see her on camera hit the ground, but you hear it, and the subtitle is "Sound of Body Hitting Stone." I was just like, "Yay!"
Yeah, well, and so that's interesting. Just because as part of the aside, like, sound of body hitting stone. That definitely sounds like she died.
Right. Well, and also she's filled with leaves, so it's not even the noise it should make.
Right.
It should sound like a garbage bag full of leaves hitting stone. Whatever that sounds like.
But anyways, animation.
It's really good, right? And so this game, I mean, it's definitely like a lot of games from this era, because this is what, 92, I think we determined.
They tell you it's 92.
Well, yeah.
I mean, so ish.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say plus or minus a year.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So it's this was an arcade port, but this is like a really high quality arcade port. Like, you're getting very nearly the arcade experience for all the good and bad that entails. And part of the good is that the graphics and the animation are pretty spectacular.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely think that the graphics held up very well in the sense that, you know, and one of the nice things that we've discussed before, but that I think that this game benefits from, is the fact that there are very few human characters. You know, like they're all turtles or fantastical in one way or another. Like
other mutants,
right? Like Baxter, Bebop, and Rocksteady. You know, like they're all, you know,
Bebop
like
and Rocksteady.
Good old Bebop and Rocksteady, man. I mean, like, so as part of the nostalgia experience, it was amazing to me how much like Turtles lore was still kicking around in my brain, you know, because like, you know, yeah, it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, it's Bebop and Rocksteady. Oh, it's Baxter. Oh, it's what was it? Mecha, whatever.
Mecha. Oh crap, that's not right.
Yeah.
Metal Turtle.
You're saying Metal Sonic.
Yes.
Sonic. Metal Sonic.
Metal Sonic. Yeah, let's go with Mecha Turtle.
Sure.
No.
Yeah. Kind of disproving our own point. But yeah, no. So absolutely, like a lot of that just came screaming back to me. But because they were so non-humanoid, and therefore it's a lot easier for them to get away with being on the left side of the uncanny valley, you know?
Oh yeah, because nothing is supposed to look realistic.
Right.
And even Shredder, who is the only human you see in the whole game besides April O'Neil, I think.
Yes.
You can't see any of him.
Right.
Like
I mean, technically the foot soldiers, but they're also...
But that's what I mean. Their face is covered in like a loose mask.
Yep.
So the fact that their head is not quite shaped right is like, you don't really care, because it's like, oh, well, they're wearing a floppy mask. They're humanoid shape.
Yeah.
You know, Shredder is almost completely covered. Like, you can see his underarm and hands, I guess, and like his eyes.
Yeah, but still, I mean, and that's the thing, is he's got like that big old honking like Shredder face get up, you know, so whatever you call that.
A mask?
Sure. And the thing is that like even like normal Shredder you don't see for very long, because he immediately becomes Super Shredder. And so that does two things. One is it makes everything bigger, so it's easier to like kind of render, you know, like
right.
The 1 pixel isn't as big of a deal. And two, it's more extreme, you know? So
right, because he's supposed to now be like the Hulk. Like he's humanoid but unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. So like, and if I remember correctly, it's ooze. Is it the ooze that makes Shredder into Super Shredder?
In the movie. So in the game, he
just Super Saiyan.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I gotta kill these turtles now. So this isn't even my final form. Yeah. In the movie, he absolutely takes in some of the ooze and goes all Super Shredder. And actually, to that point, so in the movie, the characters had their masks were like pretty brightly colored, but their skin was like a little bit more realistic, like darker green, and their undercarriage, the yellow part of like their chest and like abdominal cavity is like kind of a yellow. And then in the movie, they make it like a much darker, kind of like almost like a tan, like muddied color, because that's what turtles look like.
Right.
So they're trying to make it like slightly less absurd. And in the game, we played through this entire playthrough, and then at the end, we were like, we totally skipped over the options.
Oh, absolutely. Didn't even think about it.
It didn't even cross our minds. And one of the options is to use the original comic book style coloring, where each turtle is a different color.
Yep.
As well as their masks being like slightly darker and muddier because they're supposed to be like filthy material they found laying around. Like their knee and elbow pads are all the same color. They only have the colored mask, and like their eyes are all white. They don't have the little pupils that the cartoon had. Like I kind of like that you have this game and you can put this toggle in. It's like a day's extra work for the art team. It's like, hey, can you render this model and then just recolor the same model? And that way we're going to put in this toggle and like nerds will love it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes. Thank you for thinking of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, like you said, it's a minimal amount of work. And I would say that this is one of the few times that I've ever seen like the upside of palette swapping. And,
yeah, that's true.
and that now that you mention it, like I'm thinking, and I can't think of too many games around this era where you could basically palette swap yourself at will. And it's just kind of like, well, why wouldn't you though? Like, why wouldn't you be like, oh, I don't want to be this color. I just want to be like the blue or green or whatever. So it's like, yeah, why not? Why not that?
Well, and now you can see how that's gone over time. Is now there is like an entire sub economy of like, oh, you can buy a different skin for your character in latest shooting shooter game, and people
play that game. It's a good game.
It's a good game. Yeah, 5 stars. People will pay like actual cash money for what we have like chided for the entire length of the show as a lazy palette swap.
Right.
And I know that a real skin, like a modern game, is like there's 3D modeling, and in a game like Overwatch, there's like clever reasons that there's an alternative skin. But if Street Fighter continues to make new games, because I think that series is still running.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Like, I can very easily imagine them selling DLC. If they haven't already done this, they've almost definitely already done this.
Yeah.
I can imagine them selling
Continuing.
DLC that is literally just character skins and palette swaps.
Oh, absolutely. And actually what Overwatch does that I think is worse, and I mean I like that game, but is that they won't let you straight up buy the skins. The only thing that you can do is buy the packs that skins come in. So
they're random.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's oh god, what game is there's a Steam game, it's like Team Fortress or something.
Right.
There's a few Steam based games that are like famous for you can't buy the thing you want, you buy like a loot box.
Yes.
Or like a dumb friggin' crate of random crap. And I think the worst, this is the most unforgivable, is you buy the box and there's a chance it can contain a thing you've already gotten. Mm-hmm. So then your money is just literally wasted.
Well, what this one does is it gives you in-game currency, but like, and this is something like it's weird economics all the way down. And one that I particularly hate, just as long as I'm complaining about Overwatch, is in this particular game, so if you get like a legendary skin costs 1,000 currencies, whatever it is, 1,000 blimflarks. So, but then if you can just get legendary money, basically. So if it's like a legendary draw, but it's money, it's only 500.
You're making me tired.
It gets one more worse. If you get a duplicate legendary skin, it's only 250. So, yeah. And Lions' face is melted, so we're going to call it early on this one.
Okay, so just baking that stuff in.
Yeah.
Like, thank you, Turtles in Time developers. Like,
exactly.
Don't. I mean, and this was arcade era. Like, DLC was just a dream in some marketer's eye. but I like that they just thought to do stuff like that, because the enemies are almost exclusively palette swaps, because it's a beat 'em up game.
Yep.
So you have purple foot soldiers that are like the foot soldiers, and then you have the blue ones, which I think have weapons like swords, and then you have the yellow ones, which weirdly walk on screen, throw their bomb, and then just calmly walk back away.
Yeah.
So like you don't have to defeat them to progress.
No, they're totally Union. Like it's like, hey, maybe you could throw the bomb and fight. Talk to the Union. Like
no way, not for scale, my friend.
To be fair, though, I mean, if I'm a foot soldier and I've got a bomb, right? And so I'm apparently either bad enough of a foot soldier that they felt the need to arm me with incendiary devices, as opposed to some of my friends that they're sending in just straight up bare knuckle boxing, right? And I am seeing anthropomorphized turtle laying waste to everyone I know and love. I might just throw that bomb and be like, and I'm out.
I'm out.
Yep, done.
I did my part.
I'm not going to throw my body on the pile.
Yeah, and I mean, basically, the bosses are, every single boss sprite is 100% unique. You never fight the same boss twice. They're all rendered beautifully. The one mutant turtle that you fight in 25 billion BC or whatever.
Yep.
Is he's scary. Like his teeth are pointy. He's got the big spikes on his shell. Like all of the bosses are where they put 99% of their character design work. Like,
right.
Because you don't care about foot soldiers. Like you're there for the beat 'em up and then the thrill of the boss fight. Like,
yeah.
Like it could just be walking down a hall with no foot soldiers and then a boss fight and that'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely have, I mean, I would, you can make the argument that, all of the fighting up until the boss is kind of filler. But I mean, when you play a game like this, what you're in it for is to be the Ninja Turtle and beat up the bad guys. So
yes.
If they had like a whole bunch of different like enemy sprites that they made for just this game, you'd be frustrated because you're like, I don't want to fight, Joe Accountant or whatever sprite they would pick. Like,
as best you can come up with.
Yeah, Joe Accountant, man. Hey, TM. But anyways,
Ninja Turtles hate CPAs. Just totally hate them.
But like if you had to fight a bunch of like random sprites that weren't on the show, you'd get frustrated, because that's not what you're there for. That's not what you signed on for. You signed on to be the Ninja Turtle. So
agreed.
So I would say that considering the amount of time and energy that they clearly put into the bosses, I think that the palette swapping and just lack of variation of bad guys is to stay true to the source material, not out of laziness like some other games we've played.
No, I agree, because it would feel weird if there were a bunch of, even if they were well designed, well thought out enemies, if there were a bunch of enemies that were only in the game,
yeah,
you'd kind of be like, oh, but what is that? Who is that? And it could be a good thing, but I can understand why it's way less work to say, like, we're just going to put in armies of foot soldiers,
yep,
just like in the cartoon, and then we're going to put all of our like real art design work into the level design, which is spectacular,
yes,
and into the boss design, which is also spectacular.
Agreed. And also, too, I thought that they did a good job with palette swapping because, in a sense, like, so most of the time, palette swapping just straight up laziness. Like we want it to feel like you're fighting a new bad guy, even though you're totally not.
Right.
In this one, and this leads in a little bit to visuals in service of gameplay, is the palette swapping change, like the blue foot soldiers have different weapons than the purple foot soldiers have different weapons than the yellow.
Right.
So it telegraphs you immediately. So like I don't have to like walk up to a foot soldier and then all of a sudden he pulls out a shiv and like stabs me. I know that the blue ones have the shivs and the purple ones do not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can key your behavior off of like, oh, purple guy, he doesn't have a weapon. I'm gonna stab him super quick and then go deal with this like more significant threat.
Absolutely. And so, honestly, like you said, the level design, I think, well, I mean, okay, so the art of the level design is great. I mean, it
beautiful pixel art, holds up incredibly well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's like some things that, and this touches on both visuals and audio a little bit, but is like, so in the future factory stage, I don't know, like the one where there are the foot soldier tubes.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
which makes just all kinds of no sense. But whatever.
Yeah, whatever. it's the game. Like, in that one, like, there's one part where they're, are they called mousers?
Mousers.
The little.
Oh, the little R2D2s.
Well, no, not the little R2D2s. The little.
The really
choppy,
small one.
Yeah, I think those are mousers.
Yes, yeah, yep.
Yeah, totally.
Yep, yeah, my research is indicating that's accurate enough to ship.
Oh, well, yeah, no, absolutely. we'll definitely follow up the minute that we're done recording.
Yeah, correction will be in the show notes. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyways, so most of the bad guys come in from like the sides of the screens, but there's one part in that stage where they're coming from the back.
Yeah.
And so basically, like, honestly, mechanically, it doesn't really change that much because they're still coming into the screen. But like, you see like the back, like them moving across the conveyor belt, and then you see one of them jump out, and then it leaves a broken pane. So even if you missed the fact that that's where it came from the first time, you'll see like broken glass, and then like another one come out. And so they telegraphed that, I thought, pretty well. And for a game of this era, I thought they did a great job of like making you feel like the world is alive, because it's not like you're just walking from point A to point B and bad guys are just somehow funneling in both behind you and in front of you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're coming off of conveyor belts, and sometimes like they're coming up out of the floors, which was terrifying.
That was weird.
Yeah.
And mechanically, I mean, in the mechanics in service of the visuals here, as opposed to the other way around, is if you didn't have any of those visuals where they jump in from the background or they T-1000 up from the ground terrifyingly, you would know, oh, threats only come from the edge of the screen, so I'm going to kind of hover near the center
Right.
so that I have time once I see them enter the screen. But that's not true. Sometimes they come from the middle of the screen,
Right.
They come from the ground up or the sky down, right? So you can't just bank on them casually walking into scene,
Right.
Like hat in hand, like, hey, and then you stab them.
Yeah.
So it's a very cool thing visually, but it's entirely, rightfully so, in service of that mechanic, because otherwise it would become too repetitive.
Absolutely. And just now that we're talking about it, I'm thinking about it, like, so there is a degree of peekaboo physics, which is fine. It works. But so the enemies are constantly coming off from beside the screen. So what does the battlefield actually look like from the turtles who can see down the battlefield?
Right, because they can see down hall.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just wave after wave of foot soldiers. I mean, probably the reason why they don't do that for the players is because they like that'd be disheartening. And more importantly, is like, so wave after wave is coming at you and you're beating them down, but then sometimes coming from what would be behind you. So they're constantly also like filing in behind you as well. So kind of
I mean, some of the level design wouldn't support this description too well, like when you're in the like halfway constructed building. But I can imagine, like, if you could look down the hall, like if you could see a first person view, it's not wave after wave in like an orderly line, because some of them are like coming around hallways or appearing weirdly out of the floor. So
as you do.
Yeah, so they're not staring down just this endless parade of purple foot soldiers. Like they're coming in from like side corridors and dropping in from the ceiling and whatever. And that would, I think actually there's a scene in the first movie where they're like at the warehouse where they fight, and you see the wave of foot soldiers rush at them. And I think it's supposed to in the game it's supposed to convey that feeling of like the clan, the foot, like they are legion, right? There are 4 of you and you are incredibly powerful ninjas, but there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of these bizarre cult acolytes.
Yeah, which I think, if I remember correctly from the movies, are just teenagers.
Well, in the movies they were definitely people.
Oh yeah, no, they were absolutely people. But if I remember correctly from the movies, basically, it shows just a bunch of kids hanging out and like doing drugs, because obviously drugs, it's bad. But like
drugs lead to gang violence.
Yeah. So, but I remember seeing a presentation where the person was like, it gets really weird really fast, because like it's just like a bunch of kids, hanging out doing kid stuff, like kind of gang kid stuff, and then a giant man clad in armor starts yelling about mutant turtles and having to kill them, and it's just like, man, I just wanted some weed.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go, because
I'm not here for any of this.
Yeah, this is all the hot mess.
Well, so in the movie they're definitely people, which is why they handle the way they're dispatched very differently.
Dispatched.
And in the cartoon, they were absolutely robots, because it's Shredder and Krang in the Technodrome, and which is from Dimension X, I think.
Yes, it's either X or Z.
Krang is not of our reality.
Correct.
Right, so they make all these mechanical ninjas, because if you had that level of sophisticated robotics, why not make something completely humanoid with all the drawbacks that entails?
Yeah, exactly.
And then so then when they're defeated in the show, especially because when you consider most of them have some kind of piercing or like bludgeoning, or they all have piercing or bludgeoning weapons, like they can't just be beating teenagers to death all the time. so they can stab a robot, the robot explodes.
Right.
And in the game, you and I were debating, because I said you can see their hands, and their hands sure look like they're like white, white person flesh color hands, and yet when they die, they explode.
Yes.
So are they robots made to look humanoid, or are they humans that explode?
So I would say that they are robots made to look humanoid, but I really like the idea that basically, because you knock them around a little bit, then they fall down, and then they explode. So the idea of like Shredder and his people being, dead men tell no tales. And so the minute that you go down, if you stay down for too long, so they think you might be unconscious or hurt, that they have like strapped to you a destruct button.
It's a cyanide capsule, but way more visually spectacular.
Yes. Although the other reason why I would think that it's like a robot is because, like you could have like several small bombs, so it like explodes into like very, very small pieces, and not to get too visceral, but if a person explodes, it's messier.
There's mass.
Yeah. There's a lot more left.
Well, and so I mean, I don't want to think that as the hero, I'm just murdering wave after wave of like misguided youth.
Oh, you're not the hero in this, but we can get to that.
But yeah, I'd prefer to think of them as robots because, wave after wave of misguided youth is not what heroes do.
No.
So, but on the other hand, like from a video gamey perspective, it is not uncommon for games that have animals and monsters and people that when they die, they poof, like a little like poof animation. So the fact that they explode when they die does not to me automatically sell these robots because that's a normal video gaming thing to do. And I kind of wonder if there's anywhere in the game where there's a strong signal you are killing wave after wave of misguided youth, or no, these are definitely robots. Because I think this universe is based entirely as an extension of the cartoon universe in which they are robots. So I'd argue they're robots.
I would too, and especially the reason why this is definitely an extension of the cartoon is because the default palette swap, as we said before, was cartoon
to the comic. Yeah,
it was like cartoon, and then you could swap it to the comic if I remember correctly.
Yes,
so it's like the default. I think it actually says cartoon. So
yeah,
they're definitely keying off of the cartoon, at least in that capacity.
Yeah, and I mean April O'Neil is the weirdly yellow jumpsuited reporter. Shredder looks exactly the way he does in the cartoon. I don't think Krang was part of the comic, or at least not till later.
Wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't. Krang's weird.
He's not in the movies.
No, he's definitely not in the movies because I think at some point they were like, we need to render an entirely new dimension. It's like,
we're not going to do that.
No, so no Krang, got it.
Yeah, and I do love, and this is the last thing I want to mention about visuals to make sure we talked about is I like when video games kind of wear on their sleeve, like we wanted to do something fun in the game, so we came up with a reason to allow us to do that. Don't think about it too hard. What about the universe where Hitler cured cancer?
Answers, don't think about it, Morty.
Right? So they have this time travel mechanic exclusively so they have a reason to shove you into different themed levels.
Yes.
There's like the Old West level where you're on the train, and there's 25 billion BC, which we still don't quite understand. And then there's the future, which is 2020, and then the distant future, which is 2100.
Right.
But I like that at the end of each level, when you beat, because you go through like the first 3 or 4 levels in present day in 1992, and then you beat Krang, and then Shredder time warps you as his means by which to defeat you, which is whatever. We'll talk about that in mechanics, I guess. But but like weird. he time warps you, and then at the end of the prehistoric level, you get time warp to the next place, and at the end of the so I'm trying to decide: are you freeing yourself from that time by beating the boss, or is Shredder sending you to another time to try and kill you there?
I would think that it's, well, neither makes any sense, but so like okay, no, wait, I can rationalize this. Okay, so I was gonna say like Shredder keeps sending you to other times to try to kill you, but
I mean that's how that's how it reads to me,
which is fine, and that would be very comic booky. But at the same point in time, it's like just by sheer virtue of you being in 25 billion BC, then you die there. Like
just leave there.
Yeah, just leave you there. Like live to be. It's like GLaDOS says, like the go ahead and live your life, because it's finite. So I've won because you'll eventually die. So yeah, that whole thing is like just leave them in leave them in the 1800s. Leave them anywhere that's not
1992.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no.
Well, and there's actually proof that would have been a viable solution because the second to last level is 2020. The last level, as far as we know, because we actually didn't finish, the second to last, or the last level is 2100. So that's like a future in which Shredder and Krang have taken over, and you kind of see the effects of that in the level design, like a little tiny bit.
Yeah.
So yes, that would have been a completely viable solution. Is like bamf them back in time. Even if you could just do the bare minimum, like if say they were going to live into their 30s or their 40s,
right?
Just bamf them back 40 years before Shredder's born.
Yeah.
And now you're pretty much, because they're not going to go kill Shredder's innocent parents.
Yeah. I mean, depending on how time travel actually works in this, assuming that you just travel through time and not through space.
Right.
You could literally bamf them 5 minutes into the future, put an acid vat underneath where they're going to bamf back, and then just let that happen, I mean, like, it's time travel. Like, there's a lot of fun, weird stuff that you can do. So what I'm going to, my final answer is going to be, by beating the boss, you're stealing their time travel device off of them, which allows you to travel into time, but you don't really know how to use it, which is why you're bamfing around through time.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah,
because here's why. Because not only does Shredder send you around time, but he sends you like with like friends. So like every level still has foot soldiers in it,
right.
and like the pirate themed level, which is I like the pirate themed level.
Yeah,
but the pirate themed level has pirate themed Bebop and Rocksteady in it. So he obviously sent them with you. They're not freaking Highlanders. Like they weren't there waiting for you.
And speaking of, just because this is kind of visuals and I just got a huge kick out of it, mostly because you drew my attention to it, which is in the pirate level, the enormous cannonballs. So like they basically there is the ball mechanic, which shows up in a bunch of different levels, where basically if the ball lands on you, it squishes you.
You get squished, yeah.
Yeah, and the first
cartoony, big eyes, the whole thing.
Yeah. So the first time you see that, it's like a big like wrecking ball, which is still comically large, but kind of makes sense.
Yeah, you're in a construction zone.
Yeah, it holds up. So then, but then, yeah, when you're on the pirate level, the same sized ball, which is easily half again your height in diameter, right? So probably 10 feet in diameter, is being fired from a cannon off of another ship. So I think you said you were like, how big is this ship? And I was like, it is much further away than it appears.
Yeah, it would have to be just absolutely massive. And I mean, even the cannon on the ship looks ridiculously large. Like the whole thing is just like, oh, I get it. You wanted to reuse the ball mechanic of like, and again, that's good level design, right?
Yeah.
Because the level interacts with me the level interacts with me in a threatening way, in addition to the enemies that I have to stab to death and they explode. And that's cool, but you know, it's big.
Yeah.
It's a big cannonball coming off big ship.
Yeah, I mean, it was more like a ship, a cannon with a ship attached. Than like oh my god, look at that guy. They're like giant claws with lobsters attached, as Zoidberg would say. But yeah, overall though, I mean, to put my capstone on visuals, did they hold up? Yeah, no, I mean, I at no point was I concerned about like where I was. I knew who I was fighting. Even when they do come from the center of the screen, the visuals telegraph that. So like when the foot soldiers like appear T-1000 style out of the ground, they appear out of the ground. There's like at least a solid half second to a second of them forming.
Yeah, you get your reaction time.
Yeah, so that way it's not like all of a sudden like, oh, they appeared and you're dead. And then even with Super Cannon, like it has the shadow. So like you see,
well, and you see the firing animation.
Exactly. So you see fire in the background draws your attention, and then you see a shadow, and you're like, oh, bet you that's going to try to kill me.
Yeah, that's where it's going to hit, I bet.
Yeah. So yeah, the visuals were both visually appealing, and I thought serviced gameplay very well.
Yeah, I agree, and I can actually do you one better on everything, because that's just how I am. No,
good call.
Yeah, I can. I will go so far as to say the visuals are better than I remembered them. Because I remembered this game being really beautiful in the arcade and being really beautiful on Super Nintendo, and obviously we played it on the Super Nintendo, and I kind of like fired it up, and I was like, oh, the opening, like that's cute. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and there's a little animation. They do some Mode 7 stuff where they like fly into the camera, and then the level actually starts, and I was like, oh, this is beautiful. Like I would print this out and put this on the wall. Like it's really good pixel art, and I think part of the reason it holds up so well is because they're going for a super cartoony feel.
Yeah.
And that thing, solid green for their skin, solid color for the masks, like that's going to age well forever.
Yeah.
They're not trying to make them look realistic because they're mutant turtles. Like they look the way they look. So like that kind of art holds up really well. And it actually held up even better than it did in my memory.
No, I would say that for me, like I kind of remembered it semi-accurately, but it definitely held up. And just one other thing that I just thought of, there are never any green foot soldiers.
Yeah, because then that'd
be confusing.
It would be very confusing.
Yeah, so I mean, so all the foot soldiers, there's never a green enemy,
right.
So the green thing is always you. Everything else is trying to kill you.
In fact, even the mutant turtle that you fight in BC 25 billion he's like a gray. I mean, he's a very muddy green, but also he looks only like you barely in kind.
Right.
He's spiky.
Yeah.
He's hunched. His posture is different. He's got, I think he has 2 weapons, which
I think it's like Wolverine claws.
Something.
Yeah.
But I mean, and then Mecha Turtle obviously looks nothing like you.
Yeah.
Like he just has your basic outline.
Right.
So yeah, so you never are like, is that green thing me or is that green thing going to kill me?
Right. Exactly. So yeah, visuals definitely held up.
Sound, I'm unfortunately going to have to play one of your cards here because this game had music.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a beat 'em up.
Right.
So there's almost never silence.
Yeah.
You never really like stop to smell the roses or listen to the roses, I guess.
Yeah, no, I thought that the as far as the music goes, I thought it was fine. Like it's all very kind of up tempo, so it's
Very, very actiony.
Yeah, and especially the boss music is consistent. So
yes, so you always know when a boss battle is about to start because it does the lead in.
Right. So, like you can always tell, like you said, like, you're playing, and it's like, and now there's going to be a boss. Brace up. So, like they have the visual of like they've got a health bar and all this sort of stuff and a name, as opposed to nameless foot soldier N, whose, wife is setting his place at the dinner table.
No, they're robots. They're not given human emotions or families. Why would you do that? Why on earth would Shredder be like, wait, we can't just produce an army of mindless zombie foot soldier robots. They need backstories and families and names.
Because then they have something to fight for.
You're a monster.
You're bad. You should feel bad. Yeah, this is why I think at one point a friend of mine said, like, oh, you should run for political office. I was like, I am uniquely unqualified for that. Have you heard some of the stuff that I say? Yeah, because you can't say, like, oh, yeah, well, we're going to make robots, but we got to give them feelings. So that way they fight harder. And it's like, ugh. Anyways, so sound. Yeah, so I thought that the music telegraphed pretty well. I did get a huge kick out of where I feel like the sound to me kind of fell flat was in the
uncanny valley of human voices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where it's just kind of like turtle power, and you're like, no one ever has sounded like that in the history of mankind.
Yeah, and it's not that the lines are. I mean, the lines are delivered in a very cartoony sort of B-rate voice acting, but I mean, it's supposed to be. It's
right.
It's a kid's game from a kid's cartoon based on a very violent comic book. But yeah, the turtle power, pizza time, and shell shocked, like
cowabunga.
Oh god, they're delivered the way they're delivered. That's fine, but it all sounds like this, and it's just really and very Super Nintendo arcade era, like early 90s.
Yeah,
and I'm sure at the time they were like, we can put human speech.
And it was like mind blown.
Yeah, but fortunately for people who actually walk around in the world, the human voice is quite a bit broader in its tonal range and color than they were able to do it on the hardware of that era. I don't think that the arcade version would have sounded distinctly better.
Right.
Maybe if they were side by side, you'd say like, oh yeah, the arcade one sounds better, but I'll bet it was still pretty uncanny valley.
Oh yeah, no, that I would say that didn't hold up. But then to give some credit back to the game developers, it's not used very often, So I feel like they probably knew as well. They're like, this sounds like garbage, and then like an exec basically said like, if they do not say cowabunga, then this is not a Ninja Turtles game, and everybody's fired.
Yeah, you get some cowabunga. I don't care how you do it.
I need that cowabunga in there. So like they put in like cowabunga and shell shocked, which is kind of hilariously insensitive now, because like you're not.
Yeah, it's one of those like it's cute in like it's cute in hindsight. It's like, it was a different time.
Yeah.
When people still didn't realize how horrible what that was casually referring to was. Or they were in denial about it, I guess is probably the better way to put it.
But still, so and I mean I remember like saying like, oh man, I'm shell shocked, and like just like they did in the show or the game, because I own this game, played it a lot, and now if I know that my parents didn't really care, but like if my son walked up to me and said like, I'm shell shocked, be like, what happened? Like, oh my god, first of all, who told you that word, and secondly, what happened to the point where you are now suffering from PTSD?
Where have you been and what have you been doing? But other than that, like the beat 'em uppy noises are pretty good.
Yeah,
there's a lot of bam with pow kind of noises, and it's cartoony, but like it fits the atmosphere, and it's within the realm of noises the Super Nintendo could generate. So everything feels a bit more forgivable, I guess. Like you can suspend disbelief easier than you can with the weird,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like I said, for me, the sounds were innocuous. I don't think that realistically they ever serviced gameplay, but I would also say that they did not detract from it. Like one of the other things that I noticed is that, like you said, they hit sounds like, yeah, you're hitting. But when you hit somebody with your swords, it makes the same sound as when you hit somebody with a staff.
Yes, there's just a generic hit noise.
Like you have done hit somebody. But to be fair, there's also They did service it a little bit. There's also the blocking noise.
Yeah,
So you can,
because there's the one foot soldier that can block.
right. And there, I think like at one of the bosses, I think weird.
Yeah, a couple of the bosses have defense mechanisms, but there's I think there's only one regular enemy that like holds up his arm and somehow you don't stab them in the stomach.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, like having two, in our case, two separate turtles. One of them with swords, the other one with a staff, just wailing on you, like just indiscriminately. It's just like, oh well, at no point did either turtle say, "Hey, maybe not his arm." Like I can swing at his arm, and then you stab him. Like what was it? He's gonna have trouble picking up that spear. Just like right up the middle. But
well, and what kind of armor is on that one? I think it's his right arm, like. It's the outside arm. I'm sure if the sprite is the other way, it's the outside arm. But what is on his arm that stops Leonardo's ninja doze from having any effect?
Yeah, it's gotta be vibranium. Stuff that stuff that Cap shield's made of. Yeah, final answer.
We'll see. It'd be cool then if you hit him and it went like blah and like knocked everybody back.
Yeah, I mean if he can stop Thor's hammer, but so, and then this kind of goes into gameplay a little bit. But the thing that I just got a kick out that we touched on briefly. So initially you're fighting, unarmed, like foot clan, right?
Randos.
Yeah. And then like, they slowly start to introduce, more variation differences in,
weapons, bombs, blocky guy.
Yeah. And they do it, I think, in like a good pacing, like, so at no point.
And a good distribution.
Yeah. So no real notes on that for a gameplay perspective. It's very good. That being said, from a like greater philosophical standpoint, it's like, why haven't you armed all of them? Like, why doesn't everybody have the indestructible vibranium, like arm shields? And so we kind of talked about this briefly. Is my answer to that is it's like, well, they don't have the money. Like, they don't have the resources to do that,
We can build an endless army of robots, but we're not made of money.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like, we only have so many So the bombs are just cartoon bombs, like the straight up.
Yeah, perfect black circle with a fuse.
They might as well just say bomb across it,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a demolitions expert. That being said, I don't think I have ever seen in real life a bomb that looks like that.
Well, I mean, some weirdo has probably made one.
But that's life imitating art.
So I'm not a historiologist, but I could believe, given research that we'll do right after the show's done,
absolutely,
that some of the first Western explosives were hollowed out cannonballs. Which are little black ball or black spheres, right? That you fill with gunpowder, and then you have a long fuse coming out of it. So I could actually believe that there's historical precedent for that. That being said, between the time in history that those would have been common and when like Looney Tunes came around,
right?
I mean, you would expect to see far more like sticks of dynamite, which was a far more modern thing, which they used, right? It's not like they didn't ever do that in Looney Tunes and Turtles and stuff, but why the perfectly round cartoon bombs?
It just I mean, like, and at this point, it's like a cultural thing where it's just kind of like, if you want this character to have a bomb and you want to telegraph the fact that it's a bomb, it's always the perfect black circle with the like little top. And then but bombs are basically that.
Yeah, they're exactly that.
Yeah,
with feet.
Yeah,
and we forgot to mention that there are two power-ups in the game exclusively.
Yes,
there's the pizza,
right,
which looks like a pizza box
and says pizza across it,
and says pizza. But then there's a temporarily kill anything that gets near you power-up.
Yeah,
which looks like a pizza box with the cartoon bomb on it. So
yep.
I would argue that that's not necessarily the best way they could have done that, right? Like, maybe instead of a pizza box, it could have been like a gold pizza box or something. Like, because my only other experience in the game world with bombs are that they kill me.
Yeah.
So I have every reason to believe that this is like the purple mushroom in Mario. Like, it's a trapped pizza box.
Yeah.
So there's kind of conflicting messages being sent there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was lacking a little bit. I mean, that being said, if you never picked one of those up, it wouldn't like break the game. You just
you could just skip it.
Yeah, and actually too, because of the chaos of the game itself, I'd say that you're unlikely to be able to avoid touching it like altogether.
Oh, to eventually trip over one and be like, then, oh, this is good.
Yeah, exactly. But could it have been telegraphed better? Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the places where I definitely think it fell down a little bit. And also, too, and just to continue talking about gameplay, those were few and far between, and in my opinion, didn't really last long enough.
No.
Yeah, because first of all, most of the time when you come across it, so first of all, you could just run into it like as you screen transition. If you just happen to be in line with it.
Yeah, if you're leading, like pushing against the edge of the screen.
Right, you could just walk into it, and then since normally when you're screen transitioning, there are no bad guys, you could just waste the whole thing.
Yep.
And so then I remember 2 or 3 times I was like, oh my gosh, the bomb box, and like you pick it up and you kill like one person, and then the next squad comes in and it's already gone. It's like. I mean, again, it's few and far between, and I guess they wanted to have some kind of a power-up mechanic, but honestly, I could have just done without that because it was so ineffective,
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say, like, well, once you enter the screen where it is, leave it until there's a bunch of guys, and then try and get over there and grab it, but because of how easy it is to just walk over it by mistake,
right?
It's just like, well, and there's that's it, right? I mean, there's no other power-ups,
right.
There's no other... anything. You have no way, as far as I know, to collect lives or continues, maybe through points.
You can. I got an extra life at one point because of points.
From murdering dudes.
Yeah.
From killing robots with families and backstories.
Whoa, dude, who said they had families? You're a monster.
I know. So there's that, but that's built into normal gameplay. Like you don't even have to be aware that that's happening.
No, all you would do is just be like, oh, hey, I thought I died a few times, but I've got extra lives, so whatever, And that does lead us to the continue mechanic, which, so originally, like like when we were first playing this, I was like really playing conservatively. If I started to get low on life, I'd like let you take point until like a pizza showed up. And then when it said like continue, like after I lost all my lives, I was like, oh, burn it all down. And I started playing it real fast and loose right up until the very end where it said, haha, super psyched, no more continues. And I was like, oh, that's the thing that can happen.
Yeah, and it's, unless we had looked at the options, which we didn't because we're idiots,
yep.
it's not communicated to you how many continues you have remaining.
Right.
Which seems lazy because it is very clearly communicated to you how much life you currently have, how much damage you're taking when you get hit, and how many lives you have remaining.
Right.
So the fact that this one really valuable piece of knowledge is withheld from you is entirely because this is a port from the arcade.
And
they never had to display that information.
Because you had infinite lives, you had as many lives as you had quarters.
Right.
And so since they just ported it directly, and again...
So that's just a lazy porting mistake.
Yeah, so basically they just, to use the my go-to line for this is they could have either fleshed that out. There's that big old pile of cocaine, and cocaine's not going to do itself.
It's good to have hobbies. So, yeah, I guess like it's forgivable, but it is annoying because, as you said, like once you realized you had continues, because we know this used to be an arcade game.
Right.
And once you realized you had continues, it changed your play style.
Yes.
Which then ultimately impacted our ability to beat the game.
Right.
Because you ran out of continues when I was on my last continue, but had one more life than you.
Right.
So then I was facing off against Super Shredder alone.
Yes. It's like, come back, you're the only one I can talk to. And it's like, no, I'm dead.
Yeah, and then just got... And I felt like the bosses had a fairly Mega Man-esque pattern. Like, you could watch their pattern.
Yeah.
Super Shredder felt a little bit more like he was responding to player actions, and he felt way more like he was responding to player actions once you were gone. Because now he doesn't have anything else to focus on. Because all of the other bosses, you could argue like, oh, well, if you do A, they do B.
But if there's 4 of you...
Right, but they're getting multiple inputs because, like, am I the closest? And then I jumped away, and now you're the closest. And that interrupts the series of things they were going to do, and now they have to change this other thing. So it makes it feel a little bit more believable and chaotic, even though what they're doing is probably fairly simplistic.
Right.
But, yeah, because the minute you were gone, and Shredder was like, you...
Yeah.
Coming for you. I was just like, oh, because we had been doing... okay.
Yeah.
Up until you died and ran out of continues. And then once you were gone, he just laid me out in like seconds flat.
Yeah, no, I remember just like, basically being like, oh, well, I'm out of continues. Okay. And I just kind of put the controller down, stretched out, like gave myself a good stretch. And in my mind, it was a little bit longer than this, but in my mind, like right when I was done stretching and looked back at the screen, like he had lit you up.
Yeah.
And,
it wasn't much longer.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And I mean, Super Shredder, I thought, because I remember fighting him, but I liked... he's obviously very intense, and I do like the fact that they do give you the option to give yourself more lives. So like we said, which if we had done our homework, which we totally always do on the show,
always.
We started off with 3 rests. Yeah, because you can't say death.
But it's not. Are you resting? Is it 3 restorations? Is it 3 times you can be restored? What is that short for? Or is it short for?
I personally think it's resting just to deal with your shell shock.
Yeah, but I feel like we've played other arcade ports that also use the word rest where you definitely die.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like the gaming world needed something other than lives or death.
Right.
So like rests. Hey, cocaine, go home.
Ship it.
Yep. Incentivize that employee. But yeah, so there's enough lives in the game's easy enough that I feel that, Shredder could have been beaten, but Shredder is by far and away much more difficult than any other boss in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like his variation, because like most of the other bosses, like they move towards you and then they attack, and they normally have like 1 or 2 like special attacks that they can do. So when you see him, like you said, like Mega Man, you can play against it. Shredder's got like 4 or 5 different things that guy throws out, as he is totally super Saiyaning all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, he can fly, he kind of hovers, so you have to line up with him differently, and he can like roar and power up and like just blow you away. So that doesn't telegraph very well because he doesn't move very much. Like the animation's not very dramatic. Yeah. But I mean, any other arcade port we've played, at some point we always end up saying like, yeah, but this is the part where they wanted your money.
Yes.
Like, because you're at the last boss. They tell you, like, it's the final showdown or whatever. So, like,
final countdown.
So you're at the last boss. So you are heavily incentivized to be like, well, I wasn't going to put another $1.50 into this. But I have another $1.50 and I kind of want to beat it, right? Whereas if that happens on, like, if boss number 1 is completely unbeatable,
right,
then you're probably not going to just keep pouring that old silver goodness in there.
Yeah, your silver doubloons with Washington. Yeah, no, I agree. And so yeah, that's fine. And then also too, because like we said that they don't telegraph how many continues that you have. Like when I started to fight Shredder, my absolute mentality was just throw all of the dead bodies at him. Like I wasn't really trying to be clever or anything like that. I was like, I'm just going to keep swinging on him and keep getting hit and getting hurt because I'm just going to come back to life. Which I think, again, speaks a little bit to the fact that you're the villain, And this game is not the only one that does this. Most games do. But, like I saw a video of it that I think this game plays into very well, which is basically like, so from the foot soldier's perspective, right, you're just cutting down droves of these robots that have, families.
Monster.
Yeah. And so then like eventually one foot soldier stands above the rest, lays you out, you fall down, dead basically, right? And then you jump right back up and continue to murder them, and you do that seemingly infinitely. So like,
yeah, I mean, from their point of view, you are a horror movie monster, who cannot be stopped.
Yeah, no, you're totally Jason. Like, yeah, and again, you could make the argument that you're coming after them. Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
you're coming after them because they have started assaulting the city.
Oh, did they? I kind of zoned out a little bit during the intro.
Yeah, I think the premise of the story is they are attacking they're attacking New York in the middle of the night, and so you go to engage them, and then you go through the first couple levels, and then you get to Krang, and you fight the first time you fight Krang, and then Shredder's all like, I can control time for reasons I don't bother to explain. And then he starts bamfing you around in time. So there was some evil plot that you are showing up to foil. It's not, you don't just kick in the door to their clubhouse. Like, your reign of terror is over, innocent robots.
And like to just sit there drinking tea, wait, what? Who are you? What are you doing here? Yeah, no, and again, I just always get a huge kick out of this just as a mind game. But like, in old cartoons like this and comics, things like that, like just Shredder equals bad guy, and a lot of times like the thing that they're doing is like way over the top villainous, but yeah, like you said, it's kind of like nondescript attack. So you wonder if it's like their evil plan is to provide healthcare for all of New York or just something. But you're just like Shredder, not Shredder,
Krang.
No, the rat. Splinter.
Oh, Splinter.
Splinter, who is totally running a cult, by the way.
Well, it's cult versus cult. It's the Foot Clan versus the
gang wars
versus the sewer. Yes.
So basically, you were just having this horrifying gang feud throughout the streets of New York.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Tons of innocent people caught in the crossfire.
Yep. Yeah, all of that holds up.
Because you do have to wonder, like in Star Wars, when the Empire takes over, they don't start marching around executing people.
No.
I mean, they kill a bunch of people,
yeah.
but it's not the Great Purge. They are not there to end the galaxy. They're there to rule the galaxy, and you need people to rule to do that.
Right.
So I do always wonder, and it's probably not awesome that I am attempting so hard to empathize with the cartoon villains, but I do kind of wonder, like, is whatever their objective is necessarily evil, or is it just that they're trying to... Is it the sheer fact that they're trying to force their will, or that the thing they're trying to enforce on us would be objectively bad? Because if they're like, we're going to take over and make education and healthcare a priority for everyone, regardless of their background or race or creed.
No matter how many legs.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's like, well, there's still a very easy discussion to be had about, like, yeah, but they're trying to take over undemocratically, even if they're trying to bear gifts. Like, you will take these gifts. No, you have to be like the democratically elected President Shredder.
Trying to overthrow the democratically elected alderman.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I do always kind of wonder, like, he's trying to take over and do what?
What? Yeah.
What is his goal? Because I think Krang, like, once Krang got introduced, I think Krang's thing is his technodrome, his tank, basically, that he lives in, like, draws power from other dimensions.
Yeah.
So he's trying to come into our dimension from Dimension X to burn it to the ground to fuel his war machine. I don't think that's what Shredder's after.
No, I definitely don't. And I'm really struggling to remember what Krang's, because I'm not sure. I can't remember if his motivation was to come into our house and burn it to the ground, or simply get and stay out of, like, because Dimension X or N or whatever it was is, if I remember correctly, like, really awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's the prison dimension from Superman. Like, it's hell.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm wondering what the prison dimension was called in Superman. But anyways,
something zone, Phantom Zone.
Yes, the Phantom Zone. Yep. That's her. Yep. Anyway, so I can't even remember if, like, his main shtick was just like, I just don't want to be in hell anymore. And they're like, no, you go back to hell where you belong. And I don't remember. And I think that in of itself just speaks to both the simplicity of this game and the simplicity of the cartoon and narrative in general. It's just Shredder bad, Krang bad, Turtles good. And actually, so wait, we are in the cult because Turtles good.
Well, okay, so we have to give points to the game designers here because there is absolutely a very brief opening cinematic that we A-buttoned through so hard.
Oh yeah, burn it all down. Didn't care. Those foot soldiers aren't going to kill themselves.
So the game makes an attempt to tell us what Shredder's motivation is and, like, what's happening, I think.
Yeah.
But we don't know because we plugged our ears and closed our eyes and sang loudly that was like, we're coming to kill you, robots. Like, so like, he could have been singing or he could have been, like, on TV saying, like, I'm here to give you free healthcare. and we're just like, nope. Our cult's cultier than your cult.
Yeah. Our gang's the best gang, and time for us to just kill droves and droves of foot soldiers. Yeah. So I do think that, like I said, as we've gotten older and with a lot of the games we played, it's you are the protagonist generally, but especially with modern gaming and modern experiences, they play with, like, roles and narratives and all sorts of stuff. So it's interesting to try to, like, be like, am I the good guy? And then another thing that you kind of touched on is, so whatever their motivation is, even if it is like, we're coming in to rule the place, and the Turtles are like, no, they're doing a not insubstantial amount of damage to the city of New York in the process of stopping this person.
Yes.
So then the question is, like, is whatever he's trying to do worth the collateral damage?
Yeah, you're not fighting in a field way outside of North City. Like, this is in downtown New York for the first several levels, like in Manhattan where they live, and then you bamf out to other times and whatever.
Speaking of that, I couldn't quite count all of the zeros fast enough, but somewhere between 2.5 and 25 billion BC.
I'm just going with 25 billion.
Yeah.
Bigger number, funnier number.
bigger number, best number, which is because if it was 25 billion years ago, the Earth wasn't around, you know? So, and well, God, that's the other answer is just bamf you to when the Earth wasn't around yet and you just die in space. Like,
yeah, I mean, he had all kinds of tools at his disposal, and he just doesn't really capitalize on any of them.
No, I mean, time travel is like the ultimate trump. It would be how they say it? It would be like a trump card if the trump card flipped the table over and shot the other player.
Yes. Well, and I noticed that mechanically speaking, this game had something not unique to this game, but unique to this playthrough because this is the first time since we've been doing this that you and I actually got to play side by side.
Right, which was nice.
Yeah, it was. So I mean, it was okay. So,
I mean, I've had better.
Some of the two-player games we've played, like we both got to dabble in the two-player experience a little bit, but like with other people, and then we still came together. So the fact that we played this exclusively two-player and literally side by side, just the way you would like in an arcade or at your friend's house, kind of. It sharpened it in a weird way through that nostalgia lens or it like flexed the lens to like sharpen the beam because I probably, if we were playing this separately, I probably would not have aged so hard over the opening story.
Right.
Because I would have been sitting down to like play the game, to take notes so that we could talk about it when we got together. And instead, like we were like cross-legged on the floor, like right, 6 inches from my television, like
just like you would have back in the day.
Yeah, I mean the only thing we were missing was like a 2-liter of Mountain Dew and like one of those big things of popcorn that like the Try popcorn.
Oh yeah. No, those are delicious. And yes, no, we definitely like hard aid all over all that. And it was really enjoyable to just play it side by side at the same time because, obviously we didn't want to talk about it too much because we wanted to talk about it on the podcast. But at the same point in time, like, I think that getting some of our genuine off the cuff reactions was enjoyable to me because, like, the rock people, whatever they are.
With the weird, like, condom helmets for no reason.
Yeah.
What is the point of those helmets? The rock people.
I know, right? It's like, I mean, I'm sure the helmet's a little bit stronger than your rock. And then, so.
But why not then also body armor?
Yeah. Why not the whole shtick? And then. Like, so let's just argue that you did hit a rock person in the head hard enough to hurt them. Do they have like rock brains? The rock brain's gonna fall out? Like,
yeah, are they constructs? Can you crit on them?
Yeah, and if they are constructs, then why the helmet? Like that's not you can't. There's no discernible anatomy. You can't crit on a book. But no, it's like I remember us just like playing, and like Rockman come out, and we're like, all right, kill the Rockman, and then like. Rockman comes out with a bazooka, and like it's like, oh my god!
I think machine guns first. Then bazooka, and then later rocket launchers, but the rocket flies out like a few feet and then like explodes so it does like an AoE.
Yeah, so it's
which is like rocket launchers are AoE, but they're not short range weapons.
No, like distinctly not. And then because that was the way it was. Is they had like machine guns, something else, and then like I-beams at one point that they like beat you with.
Oh, yeah, straight up.
Yeah,
like, we just went to a building and pulled these out of the floors and the walls.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to hit you with it. Which and it's funny that their progression is, like, machine gun, let's say bazooka next, weird, like, wrist-mounted rocket launcher, then I-beams.
Yeah.
You can imagine them, like, at their planning meeting, and they're like, listen, bazookas are very expensive.
Yeah.
And you guys are just not delivering. And we're not going to keep sending you out there with bazookas. Yeah. So you can either go out there with nothing or you can figure something out. and so that, they're in like the warehouse that their cult is in and they just look, the camera like pans and there's just all these I-beams and like, Jim, I have an idea.
Well, especially like the idea that it pans and it just shows like the construction crew that's using the I-beam. So like they're on like a coffee break and they kind of like do the look over of like, like
all the I-beams are gone.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, what the hell? Yeah, so basically what happened was, they just basically said like listen, we've been giving you, all of this equipment for some time and we're just not seeing any results. So, we're just going to take that equipment away and cuz that's what you do, right? Yep. Sad.
De-incentivize that employee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and to be fair, like there are just scores and scores of like foot soldiers and rockmen, and I feel like
I mean the unequipped foot soldiers make some sense because they're ninjas.
Yeah,
like they're ninjas fighting the Ninja Turtles. So you can kind of get like, well, they don't have enough swords for everybody.
Yeah,
or maybe these are like the low level grunts who just joined the cult. Like they were trying to buy weed just this morning, and now they have a purple mask on, and they fell in with a bad crowd. Whereas like the silver guys with swords or the blue guys with swords or whatever, like they've been in the cult for a while. Like, you know, Jim, you've been here for a while. Like, you're allowed to have a sword now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they've got their blue belts, so they get a sword.
Yeah, you got your blue face. So,
well, and if I remember correctly, the blue ones didn't have swords. They had like some weird tuning fork. Like, I've never.
Oh yeah, the blue ones did have. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either. I've never seen a weapon like that.
So the only thing, and I mean, I'm wildly extrapolating from circumstantial evidence. But the only thing I could imagine that as being, because it absolutely looks like a giant tuning fork. Yeah. It looks like a torso-sized tuning fork.
Yes.
You know what else it's about the size of? Size. So it looks like a blade-catching weapon that has no point of its own.
Right.
So you can imagine in feudal Japan, like you have this farming tool that has this big metal end on it, and the monks and the ninjas and the samurai or whatever were like, well, I don't want to get stabbed to death. And I'd like to be able to stop people from stabbing me to death, but I don't want a weapon that's likely to cause a deadly injury.
Right.
This is not that. These people are absolutely trying to kill you.
Yes.
And there's no reason that they should, especially when there's other people walking around with rocket launchers.
Yeah.
There's no reason that they should be using such a like subduing, disarming weapon.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense for Raphael to have a disarming weapon because he's supposed to be a hero.
He's a hero, you see. He's not like us. No, so maybe they're like the conscientious objectors. Like they're like, I don't want to hurt turtles, man. Like, you know, like what are they really doing? You know, like it's like fine, you get this weapon. And it's like, I guess, you know, but
yeah, as if clubbing someone in the side of the head with a giant metal tuning fork wouldn't do serious damage. But it's weird. Like that's the one weapon that just is totally out of place in this fantasy universe of crazy turtles and robots with backstories. Like somehow you still look at that and you're like, well, that and the T-1000 enemies.
Yes.
So in that level where they literally all silver bodied, colored the same way as the floor, pop up. Okay. Possible theory.
Okay. Go on.
So there's the part in the level in I think 2 or 3 different levels where they pop up seemingly out of the floor as if they materialized out of the floor like the Terminator. Is it possible that what we are seeing is more of like a Frodo under the elven cloak style? Like they had been laying on the floor cloaked and then they stand up and decloak. Because, I mean, they definitely don't toss anything away. Like, I am reaching super hard. Because if they have this T-1000 technology, again, why are they not all like that? And the ones that pop up, I think, are a mix. Like, some blue ones pop up, some purple ones pop up. So it seems more likely that it's equipment than it is them, like a thing they're doing.
So, different theory is they are T-1000ing out of the ground, right? The T-1000 ones are more expensive to make than the not T-1000 ones.
So then why would you make a T-1000 purple soldier? Like, why even do that?
Yeah, I mean, that I'm not sure. But also, too, if I remember correctly, they only T-1000 out of the ground in the future. So, like, that's why up until that point we don't see it. Because emergent technology.
I believe you are correct.
Yeah.
In the distant year of 2020.
Yeah, so, I mean, apparently in 3 years. Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, man, I mean... Yeah, you never know what can happen in 3 years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that long.
No, it's not. Well, especially to see, like, the techno skies, cityscape or whatever. But
yeah, hover cars. And there's a whole level where you're on, like, hover boards.
Yes.
And it's the god-awful, like, Mode 7, F-Zero style. It looks as though you are going up and away from the camera.
Yep.
And enemies, like, come flying at you and then...
immediately arrest their momentum, like to come in line with you, and so it's just kind of like, that would be the same as if it wouldn't. It should throw you off of the hoverboard, but if not, then you've basically been hit by a car, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, let's say you're going forward at 50 miles an hour,
right,
and they're coming towards you at
even
at any speed, basically, because then they are immediately, whatever speed they're going, they then immediately accelerate to 50 miles an hour in the direction you're going.
Right. They immediately match your speed. So even if they're not moving at all, like even if they're stationary.
Right. And you're catching up to them,
right,
which it's hard to tell from the visual. That could be what's happening.
Yeah, maybe. But then at that point, you know, like to suddenly, because I mean the change is instantaneous, right?
Yes.
So if since force is a measure of mass times acceleration, right? And acceleration is a function of increased velocity over time, right? So if all of a sudden you go from 0 to 50 in like 0.001 seconds, pretty sure that robot or not, that would rip your legs off.
So let's try and give benefit of the doubt to this. I'm curious, based on the way that visual looks, is it possible that what's happening is they are moving, just not as fast as you, and the time that they enter combat is when your speeds like cross on the graph. So they were going in the same direction you're going, and then you catch up to them, but as you're catching up to them, they have now matched your speed. You are now traveling at the same speed together. Because the visual does not read that way in the slightest.
No, I mean the visual is they are moving at some amount of speed, and then like once they come in line with you, they are immediately moving your speed.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean the delta speed,
and they come into line with you very quickly.
Yeah.
So they were either coming toward you and then immediately reversing their direction, which would like liquefy you,
right?
Or they were at a standstill. You are flying up to them very fast, and then they immediately match your speed, which would also liquefy you.
Yeah. And one other thing that I did just want to touch on that I just thought was pretty funny, and I think this was part of the original show, but in the one where you're surfing in the sewers, we're just like the bad guys, I was like, I'm pretty sure Ridley Scott's going to sue somebody. I mean, those were basically straight up aliens.
Yeah, just yellow.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know how, if I remember correctly, those were actual like Ninja Turtles bad guys.
I don't remember.
I don't really
I can neither confirm
either.
nor deny.
Yeah, well, the only reason why I think that is because I don't ever remember at any point thinking, oh, that's weird, out of place, or new when I was playing it,
Yeah, and I don't really think they did that anywhere else in the game.
Right. So again, just don't know how they got away with that, because that is not resembling but legally distinct from. That is a palette swap on an alien.
Shorter. That's about it.
Yeah.
Shorter, but the same long kind of tubular head thing.
Same. Was it H.R. Geiger or whatever?
What?
Geiger?
What?
The artist Geiger?
Sure.
Yeah. He did that art.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Him. That guy.
And apparently used I'm not sure if this is true, but an actual human skull in when he was making the aliens.
Gross.
Yep. So, anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, that's the one place where maybe by the time the game was coming out, they'd already been getting away with it in the cartoon for so long. Because this is an interesting thing about copyright law.
You have to defend it.
You have to defend it. So,
yep.
So if nobody went after them, or if they went after them and failed, which I doubt they cared, because it's not like you would actually confuse these two things. But if nobody went after them, by the time they were making the game, they're like, we have implicit permission by them never bothering us about this before.
We don't have expressed written consent. We have implied verbal consent.
Close enough.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things I just always thought was fascinating when I was, I think, reading something. But basically, they're like, yeah, occasionally you see like these weird lawsuits about like, you're using our stuff and you should stop. And it's like, you're like, dude, who cares? Come on, like, be cool. It's a non-profit or whatever. It's like, no, they probably don't want to be suing them either, but they have to legally defend it.
Yeah,
which is
it's a weird. I kind of get it, but it also it has a lot of unfortunate side effects.
Yeah,
that system.
Yeah, it's a bad game mechanic because it incentivizes the wrong. Like the idea behind it of, hey, look, if you don't care to defend this, then it's free range. Like that in and of itself is fine. But then nobody said like, yeah, that's going to cause much frivolous lawsuits. We should word that better or something. Like
yeah, or some other way to defend your property other than going to court over it. Something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I forgot to ask you at the top of the show, what is your, so kind of as a lead in, like, did it hold up? Like, what is your childhood nostalgia of this?
Oh, this is totally me and one of my friends at the time, just sitting down on my bed, just playing this for hours and hours and hours.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also remember it being way more difficult than
right.
Yes.
So I'm trying to decide, because I had the exact same feeling, and I'm trying to decide if it's because I'm thinking of the side-scrolling beat 'em up one that was on Nintendo, where you start in a similar hallway to the one you start in this game, with the fire coming out of the apartment doors.
Oh yeah.
Because that game was super hard.
That
was way harder than this.
Oh yes. And one other thing I completely forgot about it before we go into did it hold up was one of the things that they do that makes this game, in my opinion, playable is your give on whether or not you're in the same plane as your enemy is way wider than the enemies give.
Way more forgiving.
Yes, way more. So like there's like the enemy can swing at you and miss you, and you can swing at the enemy and hit them, which unlike other games that we played, I think is absolutely now it's good that we have like a side by side because it's absolutely necessary.
Well, and I think it makes, even compared to this version of the game or the same kind of game on Nintendo in the Ninja Turtles universe, probably made by Konami and the same kind of development team, is giving that like, if we have to side with someone, we're going to side with the player kind of mechanic.
Yeah.
It makes it more empowering.
Yeah.
Because, we kept saying like, you want to be the Ninja Turtles killing wave after wave of troubled teenagers. Like,
yeah.
You don't want to be thinking like, man, this is, and you can ratchet up the difficulty, right? But even on normal, it's very playable. It's very friendly. And when you get hit and knocked down, you don't feel like, well, that was total BS. There's nothing I could have done about that.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, I wasn't paying attention. There were too many enemies because I let them all encircle me. There's giant cannonballs flying from a million miles away.
As you do. Yep.
Yeah. But at no point during regular beat 'em up gameplay do you feel disempowered. Like you are in control unless you give it away stupidly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, basically, it makes the game, even though it is not fair, it makes the game feel fair. You know? So, I mean, but anyways, what was your nostalgia experience for this?
So this is a game that I rented occasionally, but it is one of the few games that I regularly played in an arcade. Because I didn't go to arcades a lot.
Right.
And so there were a few places in the town I grew up in that were like, not Chuck E. Cheese, but legally distinct from Chuck E. Cheese. A place like that. Like, you bring kids there, there's go-karts outside, there's video games inside, like that kind of thing.
Right.
And we went there. It was one of those places where like a lot of kids would have birthday parties there, that sort of thing. And so that was like the one game, especially at that time in my life, that I was like, well, if I'm going to pump quarters into something, it's not going to be this other piece of crap. It's going to be this awesome 4-player Ninja Turtles experience where like me and my 3 friends can all like huddle around. And then I occasionally rented it and played it at home. But this is one of the few games like I regularly played in the arcade, and that translates incredibly well from the arcade to the home console. Like very, very little felt ported.
Yeah, no, I mean, aside from the continue mechanic, which we talked about, aside from that, I very easily could have said like, no, this was a game meant to be a home game. And so yeah, overall, did it hold up? Absolutely. I mean, I would say it almost held up better than my memory of it, because like I said, I remember it being a lot more frustrating and difficult. Whereas this one, I was just kind of like, no, this is kind of nice, relaxing, got to hang out, you know?
Which for an old school beat 'em up game is very counter to your expectation.
Yes.
You would think, oh, I'm going to go back to this game and it's going to be punishing. It's going to be frustrating. I'm going to want to cheat if I can, or I'm going to like just give up in frustration and rage quit. Like very different experience than, and I mean, we were sitting down, we got to play together, and like, so I knew that would soften it, even if it was a miserable experience.
Right.
But the fact that it was a really enjoyable experience was just like total shock.
Yeah.
And which kind of makes me, as we've gone through these games, every once in a while, I kind of make a mental note of like, oh, if I'm like bored and I want to replay a game, like this is one I could actually enjoy and not just have to like critique and try and digest
right.
on a deeply researched and well thought out level.
As we always do.
Deeply researched.
So much research. All of the research.
Hours, dissertations worth.
Yes.
So like this actually falls into that, which I'm surprised because I'm kind of wishy-washy on beat 'em ups. Like this falls into like, oh, I would just pick this up and play for a few minutes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the ones that I'm interested to see, like kind of do a side-by-side comparison on, is the one that I used to play all the time in arcades was the Simpsons game.
And which is also a beat 'em up.
Yeah, which also side-scrolling beat 'em up, but I think that they did port that as well.
Oh yes.
So that I'd be interested to see how that one, because I also remember that one being insanely difficult.
I'm with you on that, and I feel like I've played the arcade of that more recently, and was like, oh, this is super hard.
Yeah.
So I think the difficulty is something they do ratchet down a little bit in a port, because they're not trying to get money out of you.
So beat quarters out of you.
Yeah. So I would be interested to play the. I want to say that was a Super Nintendo and a Genesis game, but I'm not positive.
Yeah,
I'll have to look through the library, but like that's one where I will not be surprised if that's as hard as I remember or worse.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, like I'd like to play that, but realistically, I think that the easier lead in from this game, I mean, I really like the green theming.
Green's good. I like
Green's
green.
good, yeah,
It's like
I
the color of life.
Yeah,
Color
yeah.
of time.
Exactly.
It's a color for all time.
Exactly. Like I mean, both future, past. Like something just really link in to this gameplay experience. So I'm thinking Day of the Tentacle.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black, and you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone, there's no player 2 there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creep in with the end of a smile.